No, too late.
He struck him out, and the ball game is over. Edwin Diaz bends but does not break.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Shea Station podcast. It is Monday, August 15th. The Mets have just taken 2 of 3 at home from the Philadelphia Phillies. Once again, I am one of your co-hosts, Jack, aka Jolly Olive. Joining me, as always, is the guy that clapped at the very beginning of the show. That'd be Jerry Plevins. Jerry, how you doing, my man?
I'm good, man. You had a good little cadence there for a little bit. I thought you were about to, keep the freestyle.
I'm in a musical mood.
Going.
I saw Beetlejuice on Broadway yesterday. I'm in a very musical mood right now.
Oh, how was it?
It was pretty good. Very
good.
funny.
I had to see that. I'm a huge musical fan, huge Broadway fan.
Nice.
I love Beetlejuice.
Yeah.
So
it was pretty good.
Is it Tim Burton's greatest work?
I think so. It's the one I think of when I think of Tim Burton.
I'm not a huge Tim Burton fan.
Whoa.
So that's probably a no doubt yes for me. That's his.
You're not really a Tim Burton fan?
No, I'm not saying I don't like his stuff, but I'm not like a diehard. Okay. You know what I mean? Like everybody loves A Nightmare Before Christmas.
Right.
Not really my thing.
Do you like Sweeney Todd?
Sweeney Todd's all right.
Oh, Jerry.
I like what else did he do?
Edward Scissorhands.
Batman was all right. Edward Scissorhands really good, but that's a Johnny Depp thing for me, even though they go hand in hand. Hated the Charlie and the Chocolate Factory version.
I wasn't crazy about that, yeah.
Horrible. I thought it was terrible.
Yeah. We've already derailed like less than a minute into the show.
This is important stuff. This isn't derail. This is personality.
Well, usually your taste is spot on, so I'm shocked that you're not really a Tim Burton guy.
Oh, well, I didn't say I like his stuff.
Okay.
I love Beetlejuice. I think it's great. Edward Scissorhands, very good movie.
Okay.
I just not all in on everything that he's done.
Okay, so he's not like he's not like on a Mount Rushmore for you.
Correct. Not there. Okay. He's not a Quentin Tarantino, like just whatever. If his name's attached to it, I'm gonna definitely watch it in theaters, kind of thing.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
The Mets also played baseball this weekend.
What?
So we're gonna. I know. We have to derail.
It was a good series.
It was pretty good.
I told you the Phillies are for real. I told you.
Let's preface the entire thing by saying that the Phillies look so much better than they did.
I told you they're for real, man. Their pitching and their offense will keep them in the ground in anything, and they looked passable on defense.
I was gonna say they looked great on defense until that last play in Game 3, and it kind of ruined the whole thing.
We'll talk about it.
They turned a great double
passable
play on Nito's bunt in one of the games. They made all the easy plays that they weren't making in May. They look like they could be a real threat in the postseason.
They are a 100% real threat in the playoffs with Nola and Wheeler.
Yeah,
and even Ranger Suarez, man, they could do some damage, and their boppers in their lineup can look like they could do some damage, man. They're the real deal.
We're going to talk about it, but today the recaps are brought to you by a new sponsor for Shea Station.
Right.
More baseball cards, ladies and gentlemen. It is CSG Cards. Thank you to them for sponsoring today's game recaps. They are an expert and impartial third-party authentication and grading service for sports cards. After grading, sports cards are encapsulated in archival, durable, and crystal clear CSG holders that protect and preserve. Love all the words there. That was tough for me to say. I got through it. Every CSG certified sports card is backed by the CSG guarantee of authenticity and grade, like all those rhymes, which is the strongest in the industry. Collectors know they can buy and sell with peace of mind when a card is in a CSG holder because its authenticity and condition are guaranteed. Their promo code, SHEA, or I guess our promo code, gets you $15 off their yearly membership. The offer expires at the end of September, so pounce on it now while you have the chance. Grade your sports cards with CSG. Get $15 off yearly memberships with the promo code SHEA at csgcards.com. Thank you to them for sponsoring today's game recaps. Jerry, are we ready?
We are ready.
Jack, play that funky music, please. The Mets welcome the Phillies into town, and Max Scherzer took the bump for Game 1. We had mentioned last time that the Phillies hit Scherzer pretty well in the past in the starts this year, and they started off pretty well in the first inning. They jumped on him with a Bryson Stott leadoff double and an Alec Boehm RBI single. They loaded the bases in the second with 2 outs, but Max was able to escape that jam. The Mets would clap back, though, in the bottom of the second after Alonso drew a walk and Darren Ruff hit a double to the wall. Mark Canha's deep sacrifice fly ties that game. Luis Guillorme, though, came in as a pinch hitter for Eduardo Escobar. Very confusing. I was at the game. We had no idea what was going on, and it was only going to get weirder. Escobar left with left side tightness. He was day-to-day, but later on he came back in the series. Mark Canha randomly got his infielder's glove on. He moved from left field to third base to replace McNeil, who had a thumb laceration, so he also comes out of the game as well. Tyler Naquin went in to play left field, so the Mets were down 2 men very early in this game. In the 4th inning, the Phillies got back-to-back 2-out singles, but failed to convert against Max. He was finally starting to settle in. He shook off that shaky first inning and turned in a pretty dominant outing. 7 innings, 1 earned run, 9 hits, but no walks, 6 strikeouts on 98 pitches. That ERA goes down to 1.93 on the season. But Bryson Stott, he had a pretty good game for the Phillies. One of the guys that I thought was going to break out earlier this season. He's the first player ever to reach 4 times in a game against Max Scherzer, which is insane because Scherzer's been around for basically 15 years at this point. He's the first one to ever do it, so congrats to Stott there on a great game. Adam Ottavino came in later for the 8th inning, struck out a pair of batters, stranding Nick Castellanos on second base. Good for Otto. He stays hot. The Mets go hitless for 8 consecutive batters from the 5th to the 8th inning. They went quiet. Ranger Suarez looked really good in this game. If you're the Phillies and you got that Game 3 ball for Ranger Suarez or Noah Syndergaard, I think I might give it to Ranger. He looked really good in the start. Edwin Diaz came out for the Trumpets in the 9th inning. He struck out 2 batters, needed just 8 pitches to get through that inning. The Mets looked like they were poised to walk this one off against Sir Anthony Dominguez. They got a leadoff double from Starling Marte. He moved over to third on Lindor's flyout, but then that Phillies defense, which has looked a little bit better, they catch a liner in left field. Matt Vierling makes the outfield assist double play as Marte is thrown out on that short liner. And then in the 10th inning, Alec Boehm's fly ball to right field is enough to score the Manfred runner. And then the guy that the Mets didn't trade for, David Robertson, came in for the 10th and looked really, really good. He struck out Tyler Naquin with a runner on third and 1 out, which kind of all but sealed the game as Guillorme grounded out to end it. The Mets went 0 for 7 with runners in scoring position in this one. They left 5 men on base, hit into 3 double plays. It was a tough night for the offense, which was red hot coming into this game, but Ranger Suarez and the bullpen cools them down. The Mets lose game 1, which they don't do a lot, 2-1.
Rarity loss. Game should have kept going. Starling Marte threw him out at home. Nito misplayed the bounce, tried to rush the tag. It's tough, man. That's a tough play with the catcher's mitt. But should have been made, should have kept going, should have been thrown out to play with a chance to win it by scoring 1. Should have won, could have won. These are the games that they normally do, but this is what the Phillies showed us, is that they can play some ball.
Yeah.
Are you ready for game 2?
Yeah, show me how they responded, Jerry.
Jack Alden Sorensen dropped the beat, homie. Here we go. Game 2. Jacob deGrom in his 3rd start coming back from injury versus Aaron Nola. Arguably having his best statistical season since 2018, maybe even better. That year he finished 3rd in the Cy Young. Pitcher's duel? Spoiler alert, it was a pitcher's duel. Top of the 1st, deGrom works around a broken bat single from Rhys Hoskins to just be dominant. Aaron Nola in the bottom of the 1st gets the 1st out. Starling Marte, let me know if you hear this before. Single, stolen base, throwing error on the catcher to 3rd, and then gets knocked in. Pete Alonso with his 97th RBI of the year puts the Mets up 1-0, and that would be it for the whole game. The Mets scratched 4 hits against Aaron Nola, who threw a CG, went 8 innings, giving up those 4 hits, 1 run, 1 walk, 8 punch-outs. And that would be enough because deGrom was incredible. His line looks all right. 6 innings pitched, 2 hits, 10 Ks on 76 pitches, but it doesn't tell the whole story because that man is special. You must see it with your own eyes. It is incredible. Lugo throws the 7th and does really well. In a huge 8th, Trevor May stepped up and looked great, which was nice. And then sound the trumpets as Diaz jogs in. Worked around a little bit of a wild streak, walked 2 guys, but got his 200th career save. The Mets win game 2 in interesting style, scoring 1 in the bottom of the 1st, and that would be it for the entire game. The Mets take game 2 for your boy, Jerry.
Very nice recap. Another game 2 win for Jerry. So, I mean, the sky is falling. Everything's upside down now. Yeah, a nice clean 1-0 win. You expect 1 run of support in deGrom start. That's pretty much obvious at this point. He looked awesome. I mean, there's so many ways to illustrate how he was awesome, but, we can do that pretty much all
there
day.
was like the 22 straight home home starts with 2 runs or fewer. That's a major league record. I don't really care about that, but it just shows you how good he is.
Yeah.
To me, that's not a major league record. That's just interesting facts.
Yeah.
It is a record, but I don't care.
I mean,
it's amazing.
This might have been the pitching duel.
Batters from the first to the third. He struck out, or he retired 16 in a row.
Yeah.
Just pure dominance. Like, he gave up a broken bat single, and then Bryson Stott hit a nice little jumped on a first pitch fastball, I believe, and put it into center field. Apart from that, Derek Hall, I think, had the best at bats against him, even though he didn't have success. He looked comfortable in that box, which is interesting, when Bryce Harper comes back, because he's been DHing. So who knows?
Yeah, and I mean, poor Aaron Nola, who pitched an absolutely great complete game, but allowed that little dink right field single to Pete Alonso, and he gets the loss for this game, which is crazy.
That was, you talked about how their defense looked great. Get Castellanos in right field there.
I know.
That could have fallen in on anybody, maybe even Harper, but he's not very swift of foot out there. And so having, Schwarber didn't play outfield. So you have just some guys that don't cover the same ground. We're pretty blessed with the Mets watching our guys get to. Marte gets to that ball all day long.
Yeah. And
catches that. And that was the difference in the ball game. So.
Yeah, and that essentially turned into a game-winning RBI for Pete.
Game-winning RBI, which is, what'd you write? Is
23rd of the season.
Game-winning RBI this season alone. Yeah. That's 10 more than any other player. That's a great note and very indicative of Pete Alonso's year.
Very most valuable of Mr. Pete Alonso. Bullpen looked great in this one as well. Seth Lugo with another scoreless inning. I loved that spot for Trevor May. It was the 8th inning of a huge game, but it was also bottom of the order. Kind of a perfect storm for Trevor May to get his feet wet in a big spot again. And he looked absolutely fantastic. That fastball really had some zip. And then this was probably the shakiest we've seen Edwin Diaz in a while, and he still looked great getting his 27th save. So
it was like 50 straight batters before he walked a guy.
That's
incredible.
Something crazy like that.
Which is, with a guy that has a little bit of a wild streak in him. That's impressive run, man. Yeah. Just pure dominance.
And I mean, these were still, some good disciplined at bats from the Phillies in the 9th. Not really
they look good,
that
man.
Slider. So
they looked good. They against DeGrom, he was better than everybody, but they still stood their ground. I mean, I think Castellanos swung at a slider and he missed it by this much.
Yeah.
But that doesn't happen all the time. But, they're a good team, man. And Trevor May, that was a really, really positive sign for his effectiveness, because it's starting to click for him. It looked like his confidence in his own stuff is coming forth. So
absolutely. They looked good until Game 3, the rubber match of the series, pitting Zach Wheeler against our guy Chris Bassett from Ohio. Nimmo led off the game with a double that I was absolutely certain was a home run. It turns out it wasn't, but Lindor brings him home on an RBI single to get the Mets started early. The Phillies got back-to-back singles in the 4th after not really getting anything going against Bassett in the first 3 innings. They failed to score there, and then the Mets respond by rallying for 4 runs in the 4th inning off Wheeler. Pete Alonso started the rally with a 1-out double down the line. Mark Canha fights off the 0-2 pitch to bring him home on an RBI single. Luis Guillorme dinks one to left field the other way. That just sneaks out. That's an RBI single as well. 3-0 Metsies. McNeil draws a nice walk, and then James McCann steps up with 2 ducks on the pond and just bloops one to center field. It falls in the perfect spot. The center fielder overruns it, and then there's a shaky throw home. McNeil makes them kind of make a bad play with some great base running there after Guillorme scores. Guillorme did pull up lame to home. He exited the game after this, so more Mets injuries. But the good news is that Escobar came in to fill in for him, so it seems like that left side is not really bothering him anymore. Before this game, the Mets had never scored more than 4 runs in a single game against Zach Wheeler. They did it in 1 inning in this game, which was pretty cool. But right after that rally, Chris Bassett faces some trouble with the bases loaded in the 5th, but he gets the key outs. He struck out 2 batters earlier and then gets Alec Boehm to line out to second base. 5 shutout innings for Chris Bassett, 4 hits, 2 walks, 5 strikeouts, 97 pitches. He labored in this one, but ultimately turned in a great outing. That ERA is down to 3.27. And then Dan Vogelbach decides to put his his stamp on the game as well, crushing a solo home run to right field off Zach Wheeler, which means that every Mets starter recorded a hit in this one, which was very nice. And then the Mets bullpen showed up again. They had a great series overall. Trevor Williams has been absolutely quietly incredible for the Mets. He now has a 20-inning scoreless streak with 2 scoreless innings in this game. Michael Givens turned in a nice 8th inning, which was good to see. He struck out 2. Joely loaded the bases in the 9th, which forced the Mets to use Otto. That may hurt them tonight as he will probably be unavailable. I'm not sure. He came on to get that last strikeout. Adam Ottavino has inherited 16 runners in his last 25 games, and only one of them has come around to score. He has been awesome in that spot. And the Mets throw another shutout, their 16th of the year, which leads all of MLB. The Phillies go 0 for 10 with runners in scoring position. They leave 12 men on base. A very frustrating game if you're a Philly fan, and a very satisfying game if you're a Mets fan, because they win this one 6-0, and they take the series against the Phillies once again.
Beautiful. Back-to-back shutouts from the New York Mets against a stout Phillies offense, man. That was great to see. A lot of help. Chris Bassett, this is a bullpen. DeGrom went 6, Bassett went 5, and the Mets bullpen shut him out as well. So that was huge to see. Bassett deserved this one to get 5 shutout, a little bit of a 5 and dive situation because he's been going so deep and like wearing it for the bullpen to pick up the other guys. It was nice to see him get picked up by the other end, when he doesn't go that deep. Good game, man. Vogelback looked awesome. That was a good hit. That defense showed up. That weird play with the Phillies. It was kind of looked like a hose bottleneck situation where they were just like backed up on playing too well of defense, and they're like, here it is. Put it out there. This is what we really do.
Yeah, I mean,
a good series, man. A really good series. Again, the Phillies are for real, but the Mets are better.
I know. So. I mean, this was a red-hot Phillies team that had won, I don't know how many games in a row, had won that series against the Marlins, but this was the first real tough team they faced since the All-Star break ended. Aside from the Braves, they won a couple series there as well. But the Mets really show that they are still kind of the big brother of this division. The bullpen looked great. I'm still marveling at Trevor Williams' numbers with the Mets. They just continue to get better and better. And it was really nice to see Scherzer, deGrom, and Bassett all throw in one series, because that's kind of a little bit of a playoff preview for the Mets. That's most likely the plan for games 1 through 3 in any playoff series they end up in. And it looks like these guys were definitely up to the task, which was cool.
Up to the task indeed.
Is it Apple time?
I believe it is the apple of our eye.
Jerry, can I tell you who it's brought to us by?
Please do. I would love to know.
Jerry, I don't think you're ever planning on suing me. But if you were to try and sue me, your friend, your colleague, you should probably get your legal from Siegel, because Siegel Law Firm brings you the apple of our eye today. Thank you to them. They are a New York City-based personal injury and civil rights law firm. They truly care about their clients. They're known for hiring the right experts and putting every case in the best chance to succeed, treating their clients like family, and having incredible client satisfaction as a result. A lot of firms say this, but not a lot of them actually do it, and Siegel Law Firm definitely does. There is a misconception that you cannot afford a lawyer, and it's not true. There's no cost to consult with Siegel Law Firm and no out-of-pocket costs when they handle your case. You don't pay a thing until they recover for you and then share a percentage of that recovery. So there's nothing to lose. Don't disqualify yourself from a case for no reason. It's always worth a call to Siegel Law Firm. Give them a call at 646-810-3337 or visit them at Siegel-Law Firm to get the legal support that you need. That's SEGAL-lawfirm.com. Thank you to them for sponsoring today's Apple of Our Eye. Jerry, you want to take it away here?
I do. We'll do the apple. And I'm going to go a little bit off script, a little bit wild here. You put some good things up. I'll let you talk about what you want to talk about, but I am going to give the apple of my eye to the Mets bullpen as a collective.
Oh, like that.
Okay. Why, you may ask? Well, because they pitched well all series, 3 games, 2 shutouts, and they actually got the loss in the first game in extra innings, but it was an unearned run for Michael Givens. They went 3 innings of 0 earned runs in the first game, 3 innings of shutout ball in the second game, and 4 innings of shutout ball in the third game. The third one was big because following up DeGrom and his 6th shutout, they only won 1-0. So any bit of a hiccup and the game is tied or over. So I give the apple to the collective of the Mets bullpen.
Very, very nice, creative answer there, Jerry. I like it a lot. I've thought about doing this in the past, actually, and I think this is a very fitting series to do it. I want to pull up those numbers.
10 shutout
10
innings.
10 shutout innings for the Mets bullpen. What else did they do? They struck out 15 batters. They only walked 3 guys, 1 unearned run, and 7 hits.
And 2 of those walks were Edwin Diaz.
Which is crazy. You would not expect that in a million years. Which leaves me in kind of a tough spot. The Mets bats were pretty quiet in the first 2 games of the series. They woke up in the last game, obviously. Alonso goes 2 for 9, 1 RBI, 2 runs, and 2 walks. 1 RBI is very uncharacteristic for Alonso. You expect that number to be like 3 or 6.
Well, it was a
10.
game winner, which is characteristic.
Yeah, it's true. It's actually very true. Jeff McNeil lacerated his thumb and still went 2 for 6 with a run and 2 walks. So good for him.
That's a good name. Good word. Lacerated.
I know. I keep saying it because I don't want to say like he cut his thumb. It's much more.
No,
fun
it's
to
a
say
great word.
lacerated.
It's very like dramatic.
I agree.
Didn't he make a great throw for Bassett?
Yeah,
And
he played great defense. Yeah.
Bassett gave him a thumbs up, like, good job. That's very sarcastic and such a smart ass move. He was walking on the field like, hey, good job.
I didn't even put that together in the moment. That's
Big
great.
thumb, yeah.
And then Marte has a great series as well. 3 for 11 with the double, a run, and a stolen base. He did my favorite Marte thing, which was steal the base, advance on an error, and then bring home the run. But it's got to go to one of the 2 guys at the front of the rotation between deGrom and Scherzer. And I didn't get to do it last time, so I'm going to give it to Jacob deGrom this time. He gets the apple of my eye. I mean, he's just so fun to watch. 6 shutout innings, 10 strikeouts, no walks, of course, because he's a control freak. All done on 76 pitches. He struck out 5 batters in a row from the first to the third, just absolutely dominating through the first time through the lineup, which, nobody really does quite like Jacob deGrom. 16 batters in a row from the first to the sixth. I mean, the only bad thing about watching Jacob deGrom pitch is that it all goes by so quickly because there's no jams ever. It's always an easy, fluid inning, and it's always an absolute joy to watch. Scherzer had a great start as well, aside from that shaky first inning. But Jacob deGrom very clearly separates himself from the pack, a pack that includes one of the best pitchers of our generation in Scherzer. And I just think that nobody in this league can go toe-to-toe with him in a game 1 of a pivotal series and win that game. So Jacob deGrom, he is the apple of my eye.
It's so deserved, man. He is... You run out of superlatives to talk about how good he is, but he really is just better than everybody. Like, again, these are career-long kind of comparativeness, but
Sure.
to me, it feels the same. Not the same. It's similar to like watching Michael Phelps swim.
Yeah.
You just see a guy that's on another level, on a different plane of existence. Usain Bolt, when you're running the 100, you're just like, this guy's going to freaking dominate everybody.
Yep.
Mike Tyson in his prime, you're looking to see a knockout. It's just special to watch. And even though he only goes 6 and it's 10 punch outs, like it's just, he's still got some training wheels on him, rightfully so. I think they're handling him beautifully.
Yes.
There's no reason to push him faster right now, build him up. And even, I don't know. We could speculate, but the guy is just better than everybody.
Yes.
He's better than everybody.
And I liked what you said because, I love the way the Mets are handling him. They're letting him pitch to his strengths. I think 75 is a good mark for him, especially if he's going 5 to 6 every single time. And there's no reason to push for the extra inning because, the Mets bullpen has been so good. You don't need that extra inning from deGrom. You might as well just protect him. So I'm loving everything I'm seeing. But the Mets are getting reinforcements back on the pitching side of things very, very soon. Our guy, Drew Smith, who I was, DMing recently just to talk about things because, we're tight like that. It's not a big deal. His right lat strain is improving greatly. He threw off flat ground for the first time yesterday, so hopefully he's working his way towards a bullpen and a rehab assignment. Tyler McGill with the right shoulder strain. He's a little bit ahead of our guy, Drew. He threw his first bullpen yesterday and could be working towards that rehab assignment soon. We talk a lot about the role that McGill can play in this bullpen going forward.
It's going to be a bullpen guy.
Oh,
He's
yeah.
going to be they're going to do the same thing with deGrom to a different degree because where he got hurt was in those, like, once his pitch count got up, it puts higher stress levels on your arm and on your body. And so they're going to keep him to like a 2, maybe 3 inning max, but I imagine it's a 1 to 2 inning. Fucking blow it out, kid. Show me what you got. And we saw what he did, especially opening day, upper 90s, just devastating stuff. So that he will be a weapon, and I hope he truly embraces it. And I think he will, because of everybody around him telling him, all the guys, all the coaching, like, you're going to be a weapon. You're going to be like just this come in and slice up kind of thing, which would match up really well with anybody. So I'm excited for him. I hope he really, really, truly embraces that role.
Yeah, people really forget that Miguel was casually touching 99 in his early April starts, where he was absolutely
He was 98, 99, like a few times.
Crazy.
Like for stretches. Wild.
Tommy Hunter also threw a scoreless inning for Binghamton. He's rehabbing with his back. I'm happy to see that he's progressing along pretty well, because that's the same back that took him out for pretty much a whole year.
Yeah, I think I talked to him a little bit. I think it's because just extra precaution. They're like, ooh, he felt something in his back. Again, the depth of what the Billy Epler in the front office has done allows them to say, we don't need you. Go get right. The fact that he's throwing in rehab already is a good sign.
Yeah, definitely a good sign. And it just goes to show the new Mets philosophy of protecting these guys and not pushing for the extra inning when they don't have to.
Well, I mean, it's the ability to have depth allows you to do this, because, that's what we did last year. We forced Cookie Carrasco to come back quickly. We force guys to do more than they can or more than they should, because we just needed them we needed bodies because we didn't have anything behind them, and they were desperate to win. So the way they've played, the ability to jump out to a lead, everybody else working together as a collective has allowed them as an entity of the New York Mets, as an organization, to be cautious, and they should. And it shows, like, from a player's perspective, the way they've handled everybody in the same way gives you a breath of fresh air, because they care about you as an individual, because you're going to go and help them. So it's nice to know that they have your best interests at heart, which isn't always true, and most of the time is not.
No, I was going to say, like, there have been a lot of Mets teams that kind of just, put the product first in that kind of regard.
Yeah, and if you're going to ask, like, again, they talked about this. DeComo wrote an article about they don't ask deGrom. They're like, hey, you have this many pitches. And deGrom, understanding, says, yeah, all right, that's what I have.
Yeah.
And that's huge for him as a professional, because you saw what happened with Syndergaard when he was like, don't look at my shoulder, and then he blows his lat out, or what I mean? Like, DeGrom understands as a grown-up, as an adult, as a professional, like, if I lobbied and argued and, like, oh, I'm going back out there, and he got hurt, how bad that would be for the team. And so he's taking a very impressive, mature stance and just going with the flow, and I love it.
Yeah, this weekend really kind of put into perspective how healthy this Mets team has been all year. We've had Brandon Nimmo all year. We've had the main guy, Starling Marte, who's had injury trouble in the past. He's been here pretty much all year. And watching Escobar come out and McNeil come out and Guillorme come out, it was like, oh, wow, like, I forgot that this is actually a factor that can really affect a Mets season. And they've just been so good with the platoon options and giving guys rest days every week that it just hasn't been an issue until this point.
Yeah, they've been pretty blessed, especially on the offensive side. The pitching side, we've seen some injuries, obviously, but from a position player's perspective, definitely been pretty lucky. We lost McCann for a little bit. We lost some guys for stretches, but they've done such a good job.
Yeah, for sure. All right, guys. Well, it's finally time to start previewing the upcoming series with the Atlanta Braves in Atlanta. But joining us to help us analyze and understand everything that's about to go on these next 4 days are the two guys from SNY's The Mets Pod. I recently invaded their show. Now they're invading ours. Joining us is Connor Rogers and Joe DeMayo. Guys, how are you doing today?
Good, man. Not only did you invade our show, you invaded the Mets broadcast. You caused quite the stir with the man of many names. So I have to give it to you. You came in with quite the loud bang. It was awesome.
I wasn't expecting that, but, sometimes things just happen.
Yeah, glad to be here. And it's a Shea Station Mets Pod handshake emoji.
Yeah, a little bit.
I think that's what I'll tweet
that's
later.
Right.
A little partnership.
That'd be nice. Yeah, man. You guys, we had to zoom out. Our audio jack, our producer had to zoom out to fit Jolly's head because it swelled up so big because he got a blowout conversation, on the Gary Keith and Ron show. And that's like he said, that's every Mets fan's dream, is to be, talked about in that situation because they can fill the air with anything.
Exactly.
And Jolly's ego has swollen.
I mean, it was very clearly on their topic list for the day of things they wanted to hit. We're playing it cool. It's fine. It's not a big deal. It's not a huge deal.
When does it become the Shea Station pod with Jack Olive?
Wow.
And then like under it says FT. Jerry Blevins.
Featuring
we're
that
getting,
guy.
We're getting dangerously close.
I mean,
I think we're there.
We might be.
Yeah, we're there.
We're hot in the streets right now. Jerry's going to take us through the probables as he always does. Whenever you're ready, Mr. Blevins.
I am ready. We have a 4-game set happening in Atlanta coming up, starting tonight. Game 1 is Cookie Carrasco against Spencer Strider, the man of many lucky hits, as you recall. Only lasted 2 2/3 against the Mets offense and made up some excuses. Very interesting. Fitting? Real? We'll find out because he has a chance at redemption. Matt Olson in his career versus Cookie is 5 for 11 with 2 home runs. Carrasco on the 4th of this month against Atlanta went 6 and only gave up 3 runs. And Nimmo versus Strider is 3 for 6 with a home run. That is game 1. Game 2, Taijuan Walker is 10-3 with a 3.43 ERA going up against Charlie Morton. Charlie Morton has been hit quite well by the Mets this year. 10 2/3, 9 earned runs on 13 hits. Uncharacteristic 6 walks and given up 3 home runs. Morton has surrendered home runs to 6 different Mets, but not Alonso. So that is maybe a little foreshadowing, a foretelling. We'll see. The Braves scored 8 runs off Walker in 2 innings in their last matchup, but Walker bounced back versus Cincinnati, going 6 strong and only giving up 2 earned runs. That is game 2. Game 3, Mad Max Scherzer versus not Max Fried so far. He's going up against Jake Odorizzi, who's 4-4 and a 3.8. He was their trade deadline acquisition. He struggled since coming to Atlanta. He has 8 2/3 innings pitched, 4 earned runs on 14 hits. Scherzer, on the other end, has not struggled. His last 4 starts versus the Yankees, the Nationals, the Braves, and the Phillies, he's 2-0. He has 27 2/3 innings pitched, only 3 earned runs. That is 28 strikeouts and 4 walks. Unbelievable. He's thrown at least 6 innings in every start since coming back from the IL. Ronnie Acuna, Marcell Ozuna, and Travis d'Arnaud all have 2 home runs against Scherzer. He's been known to give up a ton of solo shots, so that is not that big of a deal. But Lindor versus Odorizzi is 11 for 28 with 2 home runs. That is game 3. And the final game, we get Jacob deGrom, the GOAT, 2-0, 1.62 in his 3 starts since returning against to be determined. We talked about injuries. We've got Max Fried possibility if he comes back from concussion. Kyle Wright now dealing with arm fatigue, so we don't know what's happening there. Our man Jolly Olive has slated in Bryce Elder possibly, who is 1-3 with a 4.45 ERA. deGrom versus Atlanta in his second start, he was 5 2/3, gave up the 2 earned runs after being perfect. He had a walk, and then Dansby Swanson got him for those 2 earned runs on a homer, but he had 12 punch-outs. He was brilliant, as we've come to recognize from him. Austin Riley in his career versus deGrom is pretty decent, 3 for 14 with 2 home runs. That is game 4. That is a 4-game set. The last series versus Atlanta before the very end of the season should be interesting. A different ball game at Atlanta because that is quite the home field advantage too. And that is our 4-game set.
Jerry, very nice probable preview as always. I want to turn it over to our SNY guys, ask you guys a few questions, pique your brain a little bit. First off, I wanted to know if you guys expect to see Max Fried make an appearance in this series at all. Do you think that concussion woe is finally behind him at this point?
Concussions are tricky, but I'll say this. It seems like Thursday, that door is wide open for Fried to be slotted in there. Maybe it gives him enough time that you go through whatever protocols that they have and you get him ready. You give him a little extra time because we know Strider, Morton, and assuming Odorizzi are slotted in. I guess Odorizzi could be the flex guy there, where if you want Fried even earlier, then you can go that route. So I do think we see him, as much as concussions are tricky, but it was kind of odd that he didn't come out of that game when it happened. I know the symptoms can come up even later beyond the incident, so I'm assuming Fried is back for this massive, massive series for Atlanta.
And I also wanted to ask you guys, since you guys are big prospect guys, we're dealing with some injuries on the infield now. Luis Guillorme might miss some time. Eduardo Escobar had some left side tightness. How real is Brett Beatty watch right now?
I actually do think it's real. I've had to fight off the Francisco Alvarez stuff for like 3 months. Yeah, basically people just get in my mentions whenever a prospect's hitting. Why isn't he with the major league team? But when you look at Alvarez, Mark Vientos, and Brett Beatty, those are kind of the three guys that are talked about. I would say Alvarez is having a tough go in AAA in the early going. He's been a little better of late, but he's definitely adjusting there. Vientos, I think, was a guy that probably Connor and I talked about this on the Mets pod. He probably should have been called up somewhere in like early to mid July, given a look prior to the trade deadline. But once you acquire Darren Ruff, now it's basically, unless there's an injury, I don't see any spot for Vientos. Obviously, the injury to Luis Guillorme with the groin, we'll see what the situation is there. I think if he's day to day, like it seems like the Mets have, knock on wood, lucked out on some of these things over the past couple months, I don't think they would call upon Beatty. I know Gosuke Kato is with the team, so he could potentially be activated. But if it's a couple weeks, 2 to 3 weeks on Guillorme, I'll say this. I think Brett Beatty is a guy, even though he has the least amount of AAA time, I think his overall skill set is probably best to transition to the big leagues right now. He has the best plate discipline. You see him work counts. He recognizes breaking balls, even from lefties. Maybe not a Jerry Blevins breaking ball, but he could recognize some left-handed breaking balls. And what I've seen from him this year, which was really impressive, he's always been a big raw power guy, but it's been largely to center and left field. This year, he's really emphasized on pulling the ball. And so teams were coming after him with inside velocity, which is kind of where you saw some struggles at the real beginning of the season. And now he just started crushing those too. So I think his overall profile is just more complete than the other two prospects. And if he were to get called up, I don't think he'd be a fish out of water.
Gotcha. Jerry,
That's
you want to say
awesome.
something?
I appreciate the pandering as well. I'm all for that. I like Beatty. Again, this is your guys's, this is your neck of the woods and comes to the prospects, but how real, I don't know. I actually don't know the rule right now about expanded rosters in September. Do they go to 29?
I think it's 28. I'm pretty sure it's 28.
Yeah.
And I'm almost positive the rule is in order to be postseason eligible, you just need to be on the 40-man roster before September 1st.
Okay.
So,
Gotcha.
So if you do a true September call up to a Beatty or an Alvarez who are not on the 40-man roster, they wouldn't be postseason eligible. But
Can they rotate? Can they rotate roster activeness? Like they bring up a pool of guys, like a
taxi squad.
Yeah, kind of in September. Is that possible?
So I mean, there's an in-season taxi squad. Like I said, Gosuke Kato has been on the taxi squad for like 2 days. He's just hanging out with the Mets, which I guess isn't a bad deal.
Pretty cool.
So I don't know if it's an expanded taxi squad, if I'm being honest, Connor. I'm not sure if you know, but I assume it's, the 2 extra roster spots plus taxi squad, which I believe is 3 players you're allowed up to.
Yeah, I think that's correct. I do know it goes to 28 on September 1st. And like Joe said, the most important thing is definitely that 40-man because it'll affect the postseason eligibility, which, Vientos is a guy that has been on that 40-man, but Beatty and Alvarez will be a different situation.
So here's a scenario that we talked about a couple of episodes earlier, and I talked about it because everybody was all over Alvarez, Joe, as I know that you've been part of them getting him to the big leagues. But I see now that they've kind of settled into their season, getting those guys some experience around a winning ball club to get your first cup of coffee, even if it's not on the active roster, if it's part of the taxi squad, to just get around a clubhouse that it shows you what it's like to win, the veteran guys that show you what it takes to get prepared to win, and just that feeling of that excitement of getting around a ball club that's looking to win a World Series. I think that would be so advantageous for a young guy to be around, and they have those core 3 guys, even if it's not active, even if they aren't active. How likely is it that you think that they start to just get around the guys once September rosters expand?
I think it wouldn't be the worst idea to get them around. And I also do Mets Perspective for SNY, which is a digital video series with prospects, myself and Jacob Resnick. And in fact, our guest on this week's, that's going to be coming out later this week, is Brett Beatty. And I asked him very much that question about getting to the big leagues now, even though He's a week into a AAA career. And, he kind of pointed out largely what you said. He was like, look, I want to be in the big leagues now. I understand it's a process, but being able to be around a winning club is something that's very exciting to him. So I do think it would be valuable. Like you said, even if they just come on the taxi squad and just get a feel for a locker room, that could be something. But, a guy like Vientos, I wouldn't be opposed to him being a September call-up and saying, you don't need to be a part of the, necessarily the postseason roster, but he could be a pinch hitter off the bench. I mean, Syracuse, it's not exactly a playoff team, so they're not really going to be contending. So their seasons are going to end around then. So I think that there could definitely be some value there. And, we'll see, maybe as soon as later today, if Brett Beatty being added to the roster now is a thing.
Yeah, Connor.
Yeah, that's very interesting.
Connor, I wanted to ask you too, because the guys that we're about to play, the Braves, have done this to great success. Michael Harris is a Rookie of the Year candidate in the National League. They just called up Vaughn Grissom, and he's already made quite the statement for himself. He had an absolute moonshot in Miami. Do you think that more teams, not even just the Mets specifically, should be following the policy of like, let these kids play in September, call them up, give them a chance? You might find a spark plug where you didn't think you would originally.
I do. I think it brings energy to a club, and we've heard it about the Braves for months with Harris. I mean, obviously we've seen his arm play in center field, but his bat is way ahead of what they expected coming up. I mean, he was hovering around 300 for a long time. I don't think anybody expected him to hit big league pitching right away. They knew what kind of defense they were getting in center field, and he's been the total package. And you brought up Grissom, who, I mean, he was barely in Double A,
right,
and they brought him up to the major leagues, and he hits a home run in his debut, and then 2 days later he hits that moonshot that you talked about. So he has serious pop for a middle infielder, and I think that there's an energy aspect to it. The one thing I will say, my full-time job is scouting in football, and this bleeds over to baseball scouting as well. The DNA of a guy is what matters most, because some guys can come up, struggle, and they can find themselves in a rut for a long time. And other guys, and I think Alvarez fits in this mold from obviously doing a show with Joe all the time. Joe's talked to Alvarez a lot. He knows people around Alvarez. Alvarez has a special DNA for a 20-year-old kid that he can come up, have struggles defensively, maybe get yelled at by a guy like Scherzer or Bassett, and he's fine. He could take it. He'll be back in spring training ready to go to win the starting catching job. So the DNA of the player matters so much, but fortunately for the Mets, everything we've heard about guys like Alvarez and Beatty is that they have a different level of confidence that is going to play in the major leagues at some point in the near future.
Totally agree regarding the DNA. I think that's definitely a big factor. I will say, though, I don't get tempted by what other teams do. I want the Mets to stay to what their process is, their evaluation of their prospects. If they look at Beatty or Alvarez or Vientos and they say they're ready, call them up. Let the kids play, like you said, but I don't want them to feel pressured to do it because the Braves did it and it has worked for those specific players. Because as you guys know, like they're all individuals. It's not everyone's not just made of clay or whatever. Like, so I definitely think Beatty and Alvarez, like Connor said, I think they have the DNA to take it, where if they come up and it's not crush out the gate, I don't think it would, kind of ruin them. And, I hope things work out for Jared Kelenic, but it's looking like that was the situation where he was rushed, and he's come back and he's been kind of just as bad. So you definitely want to be smart with prospects when you call them up, but the excitement factor for the fan base as well as the clubhouse to add some young juice. You just have to go back to 2015 when Michael Conforto got called up. I was in New Britain, Connecticut at a Binghamton they were the Binghamton Mets then, the B Mets and Rock Cats game, sitting next to Michael Fulmer like a day before he got traded, and then Conforto, who 2 days later got called up. So you never know what kind of juice it could bring, and I think the Mets right now are really evaluating that.
Yeah, guys, it's been great having you on, because it's not really like prospect knowledge that's really in me and Jerry's wheelhouse. So it's always nice to hear an outsider perspective, especially, Joe, you talk to a lot of the players, and, I really liked what you said about how they're not made of clay. They're still, young kids, like they're still human beings. I think it's really important to remember that aspect of it. But at the same time, I'm just so excited to see at least one of them come up in the Mets uniform. It's such a unique sport, because we're the only real sport that has to wait so long to see these kids come up, because they really have to refine and fine-tune their skills. But it looks like we have a real shot at it. I wanted to ask you guys one more question as we turn it back over to the Mets and the Braves, specifically on Game 2, which is Taijuan Walker versus Charlie Morton. Walker got tossed around for 8 runs in an inning plus in his last start against Atlanta, and we all know the sort of the narrative that Walker struggled in the second half of last year, and I don't think any of us want that to continue. So I just wanted to know, or I guess want you guys to speak on how, the importance of Taijuan Walker turning in a good start against Atlanta this time around, because it is tough to face this team in such a short time after struggling against them in the first time around.
It's massive. I mean, obviously for the series, for the division, but for Taijuan going forward for the last, month and a half of the season. And there's the narrative because of last year, can he pitch in the second half of the season? And I think it got a little overblown because he had the one bad start this year and obviously bounced back against the Reds. But I think when you look at it, the Braves lineup is a bad matchup for him, obviously. And I'm not saying that because of what happened a week ago. I'm saying that because of the way they hit power and the way Taijuan will go after hitters. There's plenty of nights where he goes, I'm not trying to strike out 10 guys. I'm going to pitch to contact. I'm going to pitch in the zone. I'm going to throw a lot of different pitches around the zone. So I think it's huge for him, and I think it's a good matchup against Morton because realistically, the Mets are going to score runs in this game, right? If you were going up against a Strider, a Fried, those guys traditionally, and I know the Mets got to Strider a little bit last time, but he's been one of the best pitchers in the National League this year. It's hard to get to a guy twice in 2 weeks. So I think the matchup is really good for Taijuan, that if he can settle into this game, get through the first inning or two without giving up a big inning or a lot of hard contact, he's going to be fine because at the end of the day, the Mets lineup is going to hit Morton. And then, guys, we know what September looks like. I trust Taijuan Walker against the Nationals, the Pirates, the stretch they have in September. So you get through these 2 weeks, and then you put things on cruise control to win this division.
I'm hoping he has a good start against the Pirates. I need that redemption for him.
After last year's weird
the kickball,
that was so strange.
I would say I think Walker bouncing back is obviously huge for this series because, like Jerry mentioned when he was doing the probables, this is the last time the Mets see Atlanta until towards the end of the year, and I think it would be good for Walker to kind of get the bad taste out of his mouth of his last start, and knowing the type of preparation he does. I don't expect him to go out and get shelled again. I think he's going to learn from what he did his last time out. I think you'll see a better outing from Walker. And if you want to even think big picture beyond just the Braves series, there's almost like a competition within this Mets rotation because the playoffs are going to happen. I think we could all agree the Mets are going to be in the playoffs.
I'll never believe it until it happens, but
they'll likely be in the playoffs. I think Fangraph somehow says they're 100% chance despite baseball still existing. But alas, I think there's a competition between Taijuan Walker and Carlos Carrasco for that 4th spot, where if you're going to use 4 starters in a playoff rotation, because Cookie's been fantastic of late. So I think there's kind of that internal competition, which breeds great results, obviously, internal competition. And then, of course, Taijuan himself gave up 8 runs, and I'm sure he wants to reverse that course.
Yeah, Joe, you kind of stole the last question right out of my mouth about who would get that Game 4 ball. I still personally believe it's Taijuan Walker in the best case scenario, but it's definitely an interesting question to pose.
I think they play the hot hand.
Yeah,
and I wouldn't eliminate Mr. David Peterson from that conversation either, being a lefty. He's pitched so well. Like I've been so impressed. Connor talked about kind of DNA and scouting. I've been so impressed with David Peterson's maturity, being able to handle, you're in the rotation, you're out, you're in the bullpen, you're starting on full rest, you're going an extra day, we're pushing you back. He's swallowed his pride. He's been taken out mid at bat from the ball getting taken out of his hand after one pitch. He's handled so many things with grace. He's shown some being upset, which is human being, but he's also just been mature. I've been very impressed. So I wouldn't eliminate him. I think Taijuan Walker quietly has been the MVP of this rotation because he stepped up when Scherzer went down, when they thought Bassett was going to be the guy. Taijuan was the guy because Bassett struggled for that 4 or 5 start stretch, and Cookie has been elite. So it's a good battle to have. I'll be very intrigued, and hopefully everybody else stays healthy.
Yeah, Jerry, here's a question for you. Does Carrasco's postseason experience play into the Mets' thought process here? Because I think Walker's thrown 1 inning in the postseason in his career. Obviously, Peterson hasn't been there. Carrasco's made 3 big postseason starts. I know 2 of them went pretty well. Does that play into this at all?
I think it does. I really do. I think if there's a basically 50-50 flip, there'll be some factors in it, history against the team. But I think experience is huge because it's a different beast playing in the postseason. It's different. I don't care how mature you are. There's a lot of things that come with playing in the postseason that are different than what you face every day. And Carrasco, having made it all the way to the World Series with the Indians at the time, it does play a factor. And he's been through everything. And Taijuan, hasn't. And if it's equal, I'm sure that will definitely play a factor.
And I honestly think when you're talking about David Peterson as well, so maybe he's not a postseason starter, but I think he's a part of the postseason bullpen. I mean, with Joely Rodriguez having kind of his ups and downs as the primary lefty here, and Connor and I had talked about this dating back to the offseason, that the Mets kind of dropped the ball on getting left-hand relief, and then they didn't do it again at the trade deadline. But if you just look at Peterson, I mean, it's the control. That's the thing. That's the only thing that's holding him back at this point. But it's 97th percentile swing and miss rate on his slider. His fastball's up to 96, 97 miles an hour. Like, I see no reason why David Peterson shouldn't be able to be an impactful bullpen arm down the stretch and into the postseason. And on the other side of the right-hander, I can see the same thing happening for Tyler McGill. So the bullpen, while that's something that a lot of fans are questioning, I think there's very interesting pieces coming back there.
My next question, and I just you talked about not getting a lefty with Chafin. I'm assuming that's kind of the guy. For me, the big miss was not getting the guy we saw with the Phillies is Robertson, and he had done very well against lefties. I was surprised that they did pull the trigger to kind of step up. Did you hear about what package that the that the Cubs were wanting to get him? And how do you feel as the guy? I don't know any of the names for the most part. Do you agree, disagree, or how'd you feel about the package that they wanted and Epler deciding like, hey, that's too big of a price tag?
So I actually did hear that the Cubs were seeking Calvin Ziegler in the deal, which he was the Mets' second-round pick last year. Obviously, the Mets drafted and did not sign Kumar Rocker, so he was their highest signed draft pick from the 2021 class. And I don't blame the Mets for saying no there. I don't know if it was Ziegler and something or whatever, but Ziegler was their target. I think they looked at it as Robertson obviously is a better pitcher than Michael Givens, but they got Michael Givens for, no offense to Saul Gonzalez, a guy that if I were making a top 30 prospect list in the system, that he wouldn't even be kind of close to cracking that. Whereas Ziegler is the number 10 prospect in the system for me. So it was a big price that I don't blame Billy Epler for not paying it. And I know there was a lot of talk about Ben Brown, the pitcher that they did receive, because I think MLB Pipeline had him like 21st or 22nd in the system. But those rankings are months old. People I talked to are like, he's almost a top 5 guy in the Phillies system. So
wow,
it actually ended up being a pretty penny that was paid for David Robertson. So when you just talk about cost of prospect capital versus kind of quality of reliever you're getting, I thought the value on the Michael Givens move was probably smarter.
Thank you.
I want to briefly interject one more thing since we were talking about postseason experience. 7 innings, no earned runs, 1 hit, no walks, 2 strikeouts for Jerry Blevins in 6 postseason games.
Only 2 strikeouts?
Wow.
A lot of soft contact.
Guys, thank you so much for joining the show. For our listeners who are unfamiliar, these are the 2 guys from SNY's The Mets Pod. They do an absolutely fantastic job. If you're looking for more Mets talk, and especially some prospect insight, as we did a lot on this episode, you definitely want to go check them out. Also follow them on Twitter. Joe is at PSL to Flushing on Twitter. Connor is at Connor J. Rogers. Jerry, you got anything else?
What else? You talked about Mets perspective. Joe, what else do you have? And Connor, after him, what else do you guys want to promote?
Mets Pod is great, man.
Mets perspective, and then my writing at SNY.TV. So basically, I'm all over SNY. That's where you're going to find my stuff.
And then Connor, you're a Jets guy, correct?
I am a Jets guy. Also for SNY very often as well. So if you have SNY on, you're going to probably be able to find Joe and I if they're not talking about Jack's many different identities.
I love it. Well, thank you guys. We appreciate having you on.
Really do.
Guys, thank you so much. It was a blast.
That was a blast.
Appreciate it, guys. All right, and I think that'll do it for us on this beautiful Monday day. We will see you guys again on Friday to recap Mets Braves from Atlanta. Hopefully another series win. Let's go Mets.
Let's go Mets.
Take care. Jack Olive.
Jeremy Belvins.
Alonso to his left, flip to DeGrom, and the ball game is over.